Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. And yes, my voice sounds different because even with having a cold, laryngitis, whatever's going on with me, I'm love doing my podcast, as you know. Each week, I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. Today, I have my guest, Gramps Jeffrey, on the show talking about I don't want to turn 3. So let's get started. Welcome, Gramps, for being here. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate the invitations. Thanks so much.
So, what is your specialty?
Right now, my new children's book was just released. So I don't want to turn 3. And I think what's interesting about the book is that, living this past year, because of the pandemic caused by COVID-19, in isolation, except for being able to be with my family and my grandkids and my kids, it just gave me a special time to kind of watch and interact with these grandkids. I got to tell you what a trip that was. All 6 of my grandkids have personalities. No problem. One thing they have in common is a sense of curiosity. Okay. And so how excited they got when they did something new. And so their interaction really is the basis for the book. It's kind of looking at, how do 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds grow up today versus when I was 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds. So it's an evolution of the story of, the kids. The message of the book really is, at what age do we take responsibilities for our own actions? Is it 3? Is it 13? Is it 23? Or in my case, with many of my contemporaries, they still haven't taken action at 63. So, that's the reason that I wrote this book.
I like that. That's good because I know I'm always curious about how did the older generation survive when it seems like they're getting weaker nowadays. Not so much weaker, but they're getting more busier, but they're not as put together as what they used to be. As tough is what it is. I guess that's the right word I'm trying to find.
As a baby boomer myself, trying to understand the world, how it has evolved since, I was 3 years old, it was really also part of this whole story because, my parents didn't have cell phones. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have cable TV. They didn't have remotes. In fact, I was my dad's remote. He said, "Son, go change the channel." I got to go change the channel. That was the remote. So my parents' definition of discipline is quite different than the parents of today. Has today's world made for a better place for children to grow up? I'll kind of let your listeners answer that question, as you weigh in how you were treated when you were growing up on how we're treating these kids today.
True. That is true. So knowing that you have your book, I Don't Want to Turn 3, is it just specifically children that you are targeting right now for who you like to work with, or is it more of the seniors?
The reason I wrote this book obviously was for kids and for them to read it, parents to read it. But the more I got into this, I realized that seniors of today, and I'm a senior, I'm a baby boomer, I'm a senior, that we have got to get more involved in what's going on in our grandkids' lives. It's in my generation, the baby boomers think that they're the greatest generation around. Well, I don't think so. I believe that this youngest generation coming up is absolutely the smartest generation that this country has ever produced. They're the most curious, and they've got the most tools. I mean, if you think about it, they can spend time on the internet, on the on their iPad. They learn things at a much faster pace than we ever did. And and unfortunately, in the baby boomers of my generation, some of them are involved, but a lot of them said, I raised my kids. Let them raise their kids. I got fun things to do. And I'm on a mission to get us all back involved because these kids, you've only got 18 years old to work with little kids, then they're gone. And so it's important for the entire family to be involved in raising a kid. If you think about when I was growing up, my uncle lived up the street, my grandmother was a couple blocks away, and we was all together. But in today's world, we're all over the place. I mean, in my case, I've got two of my grandkids live here in Arizona with me. I've got two in Austin, Texas, and I've got two in Orlando, Florida. That's a whole different kind of way of parenting and grandparenting than when we were younger. And so we've got to make the effort to go to be with these kids.
I would agree with you because I know, I've seen research and I've heard it that grandparents who are with their grandkids live longer. I don't know if that's true, but I'm like, to me, it makes sense. The concept does. Because if you're around the younger kids, you've got a purpose more. That's just that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. The thing is, again, with us all being so distant, at least in my case, from each other,
Yeah.
what are you doing to keep in touch with these kids? During COVID, you couldn't. I mean, it was you couldn't go visit them. So, luckily for me, what we did, and for some reason, I don't know if you've experienced this with your kids, but these 2, 3, 4-year-old kids love dinosaurs. Now, I don't know why.
Yes.
They just love dinosaurs, and they can name every dinosaur there is. They tell me these long words. As far as I'm concerned, dinosaurs are small, medium, and large. But they can tell me what their names are. They can tell me if they eat meat. If they're vegetarians. Yeah, they are really into dinosaurs. And I saw this with all my kids. So during COVID, the year of COVID, we had to figure out a way to keep in touch with them. We had them here for 6 weeks, almost all of them but they went home. But during that time, we established this thing that we really are all into dinosaurs. So what we decided to do in our house, and I would recommend any grandparent to kind of do something similar to that, or come up with a different idea, is every night, because we had half a dozen dinosaurs in our house, every night we would put the dinosaurs someplace else in the house. So, one night they would be in the refrigerator eating blueberries. Another night they would be by the sink with grandma, washing dishes with soap on their nose. Another night they'd be playing the piano. Another night they'd be walking up the steps. So we developed 50 different nights of where these dinosaurs were around our house and our yard. And so what happened was, again, it's very difficult for grandparents to communicate with their kids because kids don't call you. You got to initiate it. They got all these little things going on. But we came up with this way where the kids started calling us every night before they go to bed because it was part of their routine now. Where are the dinosaurs doing tonight? So they would call my wife's iPhone, and we do FaceTime, and right out of the bed, where's Gramps? Where's Gramps? What are the dinosaurs doing tonight? And we take them over, and they see the dinosaurs. So this went on for 50 nights, and that was our way of being able to keep involved with the kids. When it came time to interact and let them know who we are. But I mean, I recommend any of your listeners, grandparents, come up with something that will keep you involved. Because again, you only got 18 years. I mean, before you know it, they're gone. And the other thing is, you got to live for the day. I mean, you're here today, you could be gone tomorrow. So you got to maximize every single day. And as we get older, as baby boomers and older, our friends are dying right and left. So you've got to be able to take that time to go out there and maximize that day with these grandkids. Because again, they have all kinds of memories that hopefully, when they're in their 20s and 30s, to look back and say, yeah, that's what I did with my grandpa.
You just remembered with my own grandparents. My own grandparents, I have one set that's still alive, but the other grandparents are deceased, and I do remember a lot of things with them. I wish I would have had more time with them, like most of us do. But I mean, I remember my grandma would always tell these awesome ghost stories. I loved her ghost stories. It scared me so bad, but I loved them. And just the way she told them was just like it kept you there. Like her listening to her ghost stories were better than anything I've ever watched on TV. I don't like scary stuff, but hers was like the best because you just never knew. And then she'd just leave it and like walk away. And I'm like, huh. So yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, these memories that are created,
Mm,
they last forever, and they can be negative
they
memories too.
do.
Let me give you an example. 2 weekends ago, we had the two kids here in Arizona with us for the weekend because their parents went out of town. So we did all the fun things that grandparents are supposed to do with them. We're in Arizona, so we were able to go fishing, to go swimming and fishing. We were able to play the Wii games. We were able to go to the park, go to a museum. We did all that fun stuff. Now on Saturday night, Levi, who's 6, who doesn't like to eat a lot of stuff, his grandmother said to him, "You are going to eat this food or you can't watch TV the rest of the night." And so she forced him to eat this food that he didn't want to do. Well, we gave the kids back to their parents, and Olivia, who just turned 9, says, "Oh, we had a great time. Went to the park, we played soccer, we did all this." The only thing that Levi said to his parents was, "Grandma made me eat something I didn't like." That's the only thing he said. So that's the kinds of memories that we create. Because they
True.
remember that. I can tell you, when Levi is 25, he's going to remember that his grandmother wouldn't let him watch TV and made him eat something he didn't like, and that's the memory. So we are part of the whole evolution of these kids, growing up.
Well, yeah, most definitely. I'm just like trying to think of a food now too. I think mine was cranberries. I cannot for the life of me eat cranberries. That's just, yeah. So I would agree because I'm 35 and that, my grandparents, they died before, I think it was like, I would have been about 16 or 17. So it's like I still had time with them. But those early years, that's like how many years later I still remember.
Oh yeah,
About 25
and
plus years now.
that's why it's important. It's
Mhm.
important for us as parents and grandparents, to read books to these kids. Okay, if you step back a second, yeah, read my book. That's why I want to promote my book. But there's 100 other great books out there to choose from, to read. And if you think back, what does reading books do for kids? Well, one thing it does, it helps bond you with them. So, in other words, I highly recommend that whenever you read a book to a child, let them pick it out, because everybody's got lots of books in their house. They got 20, 30
True.
books to choose from. So let the kid pick out the book, so that, they feel involved. So, the one thing that reading books to kids creates is the bonding between you and them. I mean, this last weekend I was in Austin with my 2 grandkids there. And so every night, they pick out a book, they hand it to me, and I'd start to read it, and they would jump in my lap. Okay? I mean, you can't ask for better things than that. And so you got a
Mm-mm.
15, 20 minutes there that you're reading a book, and they're involved, and you're bonding with them. And they're going to remember that. They're going to remember. Reading to kids really supports listening skills. I mean, you think about it, as you and I
True.
growing older, listening skills are the best skills that we can learn. It really is, because the more that we can listen, the more that we can learn, and the more we can share with other people. So, this whole listening skills, that by sitting down with your child and reading a book every night, that helps create that too. The cognitive and the language development that comes, because there's a lot of new words in these books, and the children you can ask why, or they can see how it is. So just to help the learning process, that really reading the books. And the other thing is, the 10, 15, 20 minutes you sit and read the books, it's with their attention span. It helps them concentrate on one thing, and to really get involved. So if your listeners get anything out of our conversation today, please take the time, read books tell stories like your grandmother told you stories. That's the same thing as reading books, because you were
Yeah.
there, you were bonding with her, you were listening to her, you were making sure you had attention span. All these things happen when she sat down and told you stories. So make sure that every night that parents and grandparents do that exercise, because it's only going to help the kids.
Well, yeah. And then I got to thinking too, like that's how stories have been passed before we even had reading, before we even had books. They got passed from the elders all the time. That's how for books, the
Well,
storytellers.
the one philosophy that I have, and I'm sure most grown-ups have, is it's necessary to teach kids and children how to think, but
Hmm.
not what to think, but how to think. Okay. And reading books and telling stories, it teaches them how to think. Like, for instance, when you're reading that book, before you even sit down and read, you should say to your child, what do you think's going to happen in this book? They see the cover. What do you think? Let them think about what's going to happen in the book. Then as you're reading through the book, you say to the child, who are the characters in this book? Where is the setting in this book? Let them keep thinking, keep questioning them, so that they start to think. You know, One important question is, does anything in this book sound familiar to you? Does it seem like, have you experienced this? Again, questioning them so that they're listening, and they have these skills. And then obviously, when you're done with the book, what was your favorite part of the book, and why was it your favorite part? So these all are part of the things that we need to teach our children on how to think through things. Everybody's going to come up with their own opinions. By the time you're 35, you get your own opinions. But
True.
let them learn how to think at an early age.
Well, I never even thought about some of the questions that you had just said about for my own kids, for about the setting of the book and taking and asking them what was their favorite part of the book. Because now I'm thinking about my son's favorite book, which is The Three Little Kittens. So I'm thinking about what that book, and I'm like, what is his favorite part of the book?
Okay, do you know?
No, I don't. So that's why I'm like, now I'm going to ask him that because I never stopped and thought about asking, those questions. I
Yeah,
just like read the book and I point out different things like in the book, like where the mommy kitty gets mad because they lost their mittens, but it's like I point out like the colors and all these different things, but it's like I never asked them why they like the book or like what was their favorite part. Now I'm kind of curious.
yeah. I'd go home tonight and ask him.
I am
you know,
because I never thought of that.
we as parents and grandparents need to be that guiding light to question what they're doing. I think the most favorite question that I see my kids ask their kids, okay, and I would encourage everybody else to ask the same question, is, what did you do today that was nice to someone else? Okay. Now step back and think about that.
Mhm.
What did you do today that was nice to someone else? That's a question you can ask them at the dinner table. You could ask them as you're giving them a bath, as you're reading a book. Because that goes back, and it really goes to the core values of who we are and what kind of society we are, and how are we helping others, and what kind of nonprofits can we really, make a difference in. But who else? What did you do today was nice to someone else? If they didn't do it, but if you continue to ask them that every day, every couple of days, eventually they're going to really do something nice for somebody else. And when you do that, it goes back to the original thing we talked about is, what age do you begin to take responsibility for your actions? Is it
Yeah.
3 or is it 63? But if you can encourage them again, the whole process of teaching the children to think, as they grow older, hopefully have that compassion for others that we all need.
I'm just thinking about all my kids. I was thinking now I could say, Jeffrey, what did you do nice for Lester today?
Do you think I'll
Because
have an
I'm
answer?
like, you are right. Yes, because with the mind focus on, it gets more of. So now I'm thinking, I'm definitely going to ask my kids that every day. What did you do nice for your brother? What did you do nice for your sister? Then hopefully they'll start doing that. Because
Yeah.
yes, that would be very beneficial. That would stop the sibling fights that I get.
Oh yeah, and they do fight, no matter
Oh
who.
yes.
They love to you know they have a problem sharing. That's
Yes.
sharing is a tough thing for kids to learn. But going back to being grandparents and parents when you, you know, they're only young once. Okay, again,
Yes.
after they turn 18, they're on their own in their mind. Will they listen to you? Who knows? But you've only got these 18 years to kind of influence and mold them and get them thinking to help others and to be compassionate and to share, take responsibility. You only got so much time. But at the same time, my age, you know, it's here today, gone tomorrow. We've got to make sure we maximize our relationships with our family members because you never know. The future is unpredictable. You've got to take one step at a time and do it for every day. You know, you need to become part of the routine. Okay. Again, when I was growing up, because I had my family around me, they were part of the routine because they were in the same city. But in today's world, with us all scattered all over the place, you got to come up with ways to become part of that routine, so that they remember who you are and that you can influence them, because you want to have influence on them, don't be afraid to initiate with these little kids. 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they're not going to pick up the phone and call you. That's just not. They got to focus on what's happening in front of them. Yeah, grandparents, just they've got to take that initiative to go after and be with their kids, because it'll pay off, because you'll have that one memory like you did of your grandmother telling stories. That's all we ask for. Just give us one good memory. I don't forget all the bad stuff. Just remember the good stuff.
Oh, I got quite a few. I learned a lot from my grandparents. But I tell you, I sure do miss them because the ones that are alive haven't always been the best in my life at times. So I actually miss my deceased ones more because of the impact that they had. I saw them fight. I definitely saw that. But I will never, ever forget those memories of how much they mean to me. Even to this day, I mean, like, I still have a jewelry box that they gave me when I was 9 years old. I kept that in my safe at home. I still have it in my safe at home. And that jewelry box means the world to me. Just a little tiny jewelry box that's glass, but it plays music. And it's the one that I treasure with all my heart just because of the memories.
Yeah, if you take those grandparents as an example,
Hmm.
when you love, you will teach others to love. You just simply,
Yes.
So when you actually show love, then others will love, and so that's something you learn from those grandparents, I'm sure, and it's something
Oh,
you have
it
for the rest of
was.
your life. You have that for the rest of
They,
your life.
yeah, they definitely taught me that. So, yeah, I do believe that a lot more grandparents need to be stepping up and saying, hey, what can we do for our grandkids to have these memories? Because you don't want to have the negative ones necessarily, but you know, it's the positive ones that keep them going. So when they do get older, like me, I'm always so curious. I'm like, how does it work? Like, I always call it back in the olden days, but like my parents, they always told me, well, records, they grew up with records. I grew up with records, but they also had CDs and cassette tapes. But kids today would never know the cassette tapes. They know the records now because they're back in popularity again. But I always find that interesting how some of the stuff from the past still creeps back into the future, or not into the future, but into the present time. I'm sure you remember like 8-track tapes.
I'm afraid I remember
Those I
too
don't
well.
think are coming back.
Well, what's
I don't
interesting
think those
about
will.
kids today, again, they're exposed to so much more than we were ever exposed. I mean, just watch
Yeah.
them one night on their internet or on their iPad. They just but the good stuff really does help them. That's why I think they're the smartest generation that was ever developed, because they've got a combination of all this technology plus hopefully what the parents are teaching them on top of that. You know, like for instance, I've got the one of my grandsons, and he's 6, is Levi, and he is into this game called Minecraft. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I mean,
I've heard of it, but I
he
don't know what it is.
you've got to be smart to play this thing. But the good thing about this is that, you know, he got his dad involved. Okay, so when his dad comes home from work, you know, the two of them spend an hour playing Minecraft, okay, together. Now,
Mhm.
if you would say, well, he's just on the computer, but it does more. It really helps the bonding of the dad and the son, because, you know, this gives them a chance to really, it's almost like reading the books. They have a chance to talk together, to explore things together, to play off each other. You know, this is a great thing. And so I think this technology today, you know, it's just so important to us, because, you know, we his dad is very into football and basketball, and Levi told his mother a couple weeks ago. He says, you know, I don't like football. And he says, you know, I don't want to sit there and watch football with Dad. You know, and then I don't really like those kinds of sports. And his mother says to him, well, Levi, what sport do you like? And he says, bowling. And she looks at him and says, we've never gone bowling. We've never even talked about bowling. You know, why is it that that's your favorite sport? Well, the reason is that we at our house have the Wii. I don't know if you remember the Wii.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's 20
I
years
have
old.
it. I have
Yeah,
one yet.
yeah, it's 20 years old. But on the Wii, you can, on your TV, you can play all kinds of games. So when Levi comes to our house, we put on the Wii and we do bowling and we play tennis, and we play golf, and he loves the boxing on it. But his mother had no idea that this was going on in his life. So, you know, talk about influence. So his mother
True.
was just shocked that he wants to learn to become a bowler, and that was because of his grandparents' influence. So going back to what I was talking about, the Minecraft is great bonding for he and his father, because they can't. You know, he doesn't want to bond over sports. So, you know, you just got to find that niche, because every one of these kids is completely different.
Oh, yeah. I've learned that very fast. It's amazing. You can have the same, well, all my kids have the same parents, you know, in my family, but it's amazing. Same dad, same mom, totally different personalities, one kid from the next.
It is.
That's why I like your book, because I'm like, when I was reading it about like the dinosaurs and then about how they have to share, I'm like, my kids do not like sharing. And it's like, can you just get along for 2 minutes? So we decided to actually put a timer on certain toys. You take 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, then you get the next 5 minutes. So that's the way we've had to learn to solve the problem. But that's what I like about your book, is that I noticed that. And then the dinosaurs too. I'm like, I like that. It's like just the right age. Like when you
Have
do start to
you?
question.
Yeah. Oh, here, let me read a page of the book. Would you mind?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So this is about halfway through the book, and you know, it's this page right here. You can see it.
Okay.
And, they're looking at the toys, and so that's Olivia. Then all of a sudden, Olivia screams, "What are my dancing shoes doing in Jordan's room?" The entire family runs to my private bedroom, and Jackson yells, "My dinosaurs!" And Levi shrieks, "My sea creatures!" And Baker brawls, "Truck!" And Grace cries, "My dolls!" And Mommy looks at me like today will be my last day alive. So that's kind of the interaction of the kids. You know, the book is based on a true story. I mean, this really did happen in our house. And
That's what I was curious.
yeah, and all the pictures in the book are based on photographs that I had taken of the kids. That's Levi and Jackson in the bathtub. That was a picture in the bathtub of the two of them, and I sent it to the illustrator, and she made it into a cartoony kind of a feel for it. But this is all true stuff that happened with our family, and I am sure that this happens in every family in the world. Like for instance, how do you discipline your kids? What do you do when they don't do what you don't want you want them to do?
True.
How do you?
For me,
Yeah.
like for me, I take and I put them in timeout. I give them a choice: either do what I said, or you can go in timeout. That's what I typically do.
My daughters are all your age too, and that's exactly what they do. But think about, how disciplined. When you were a kid, how were you disciplined?
I was put in the corner in timeout.
So you were just doing what your parents did.
Yep. And then I also, when I got older, I had bicycles, and we weren't allowed to ride our bicycle then. Then when we got cars, then we couldn't drive a car. So we got grounded from the stuff that we wanted to play with.
Yeah, discipline has evolved pretty much over the generations. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and so my parents came from the greatest generation. I believe that my parents were the greatest generation. They saved this world. They fought for democracy. That was the greatest generation.
Because is that the Great Depression or the era before?
That was This is the war years when with the World War II and
okay, right? Yeah, they definitely did.
Right, the Great Depression then led into World War II. So I mean, they really were, but they're very disciplined. They were very disciplined because they had to work so hard to save the world. Our discipline back then was completely different. I mean, if my brother Larry and I did something bad, my mother would say, "Wait till your dad gets home." And he would come home and he'd whip out his belt and he would chase us around the kitchen table, and that was discipline. He had a paddle that he had from his fraternity, and he also used the old paddle in his room. So one night when they were out of the house, my brother and I went into his closet and we took his paddle, and we lived up in Ohio, and it was in the fall, and we buried the paddle in all these leaves. And then it snowed the next night. And that spring, the paddle was gone. To me, it was a miracle that the paddle had disappeared. And so that was that was discipline in that generation to my generation. Yeah. And then I think we all learned from that, and then we started to do what you got in your generation with the timing out and the taking away privileges. That's the way to do it. Because that's exactly the way my daughters do with our kids. They go into timeout and they don't like it. They're all by themselves. They're in the corner. Everybody knows what happened. So that to me works much better than chasing me around the kitchen table.
Yeah, it definitely does. And like in my kids' case, I also, because the one has sensory processing disorder. So with him, I even explained to him, I'm like, why are you in timeout? What can you do with your hands instead of going and poking your brother? He likes to poke because of his sensory input. He's constantly seeking to do something with his fingers. So in his case, he gets in timeout quite a bit for constantly poking. And it's not like just like one time. It's like 5-6 times down the road. It's like, just stop already. I told you, push the wall, do something else.
I can kind of relate to that. This last weekend, again, we were in Austin for my 3-year-old birthday party of Grace. Okay, and one of the funniest things, at least the greatest thing that I think came out of this is during the whole time we were there, she said to her brother, who's 4.5, "I need my space." And she would go over at the end of on the sofa, and she would sit there and read a book or look at her iPad and say, "But I need my space." And her brother said the same thing. When they were starting to fight, he says, I need my space too. And he would go over to the other side. But so that's something that was just ingrained in them by their mother, is because I'm sure she said to them, I need my space. You guys go stand over there, and kids repeat, that's one reason why we have to be very careful what we say to kids, because I can guarantee when you say a cuss word, I can guarantee that you're going to hear that 3 or 4 times more that day. Even if it just slips out, they just repeat it. So what we've learned, and I'm sure you do the same thing, is if you actually do say a cuss word, just follow it with like bananas and raspberries and dinosaurs, things that that they can remember that they like, rather than the cuss word that you just came out. But I need my.
I will try that. I will definitely try that. That's better than some of the words that my kids have repeated.
Yeah, but this I need my space is like the greatest thing, and everybody honors it.
Well, yeah, I know, like my kids, I told them, I says, I need to take a break from you guys. So what I've done is, if they won't go in timeout, I'm like, okay, fine, I'm going in timeout. So then they want to come follow me, and I'm like, nope, mommy needs timeout. And they're like, well, why? And I'm like, because I like timeout, because timeout is time for me.
Yeah.
So it's always funny. It's just like they come and they watch me. Yeah. But I just call it my timeout because I'm like, it's my thinking time.
That's great.
I like that. And I need my space. So I'm going to try that though with the kids. See if that does better. I've really enjoyed our conversation a lot. I'm sure our listeners and our viewers too really appreciate learning more about you and like your generation. And not only that, but your book too, that I Don't Want to Turn 3. I really enjoyed reading it.
Oh, great. Yeah, you can pick it up on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, about 100 other sites around the internet. And please. And I'd love to talk to any of your listeners. They can reach out to me at grampsjeffrey@gmail.com. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So thank you so much, Gramps. I really appreciate it. I really love your pen name too, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I was like, that's just clever. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Just one more time for our audience so that they can get in contact with you. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Just email me at grampsjeffrey@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate our audience and our listeners for tuning in to another exciting episode of Healing for the Soul.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.